Oh, by the way, Alex, I've heard you're having a tough time. David told me you're a poor family. But don't worry, today we're treating you. Please eat a lot and enjoy yourselves.
I was confused, unable to keep up with the conversation. Emily questioned David.
Why? Well, you told me your father lives in the countryside, didn't you? And you also said you work in a restaurant. It's obvious without having to say it outright, isn't it?
Thank you for ordering so much. I'm really happy. John puffed up with pride.
Happy, right? You should be more grateful. Feel free to order more.
Yes, the sales are going up, so we'll all be wealthier. The food is delicious, so please enjoy it.
What? Have you been here before?
I've been here many times because my name is Alex Brown and I'm 52 years old. I am currently the owner of restaurants. However, I leave the actual management to the managers and employees I've hired, while I handle menu selection, pricing, and staff management. My wife used to help me out, but she passed away about 5 years ago due to an illness. At that time, I couldn't accept the reality and struggled to focus on work. The one who supported me during that tough period was none other than my beloved daughter, Emily. Emily encouraged me, saying she'd be my support in place of her mom. And gradually, I regained my strength. Since then, I've adjusted to life without my wife and focused on my work. I used to live in the city, but upon Emily's suggestion, I moved to a rural area, finding solace in nature. Thanks to that, I've recovered completely and returned to my usual self. I'm immensely grateful to Emily for her support. Emily currently stays in the city, helping me with my work. I felt like I might be taking away Emily's freedom, so I made a suggestion. Emily, you are free to live whatever you want.
Thank you, Dad, but I want to help with your work. Besides, I've always been interested in the restaurant business. Someday, I want to have my own place. Right now, I'm gaining experience for that.
I was so happy when Emily said that with a smile. I respected her opinion and continued to let her help with my work. Seeing Emily take pride in her work made me realize I couldn't slack off either. Let's keep growing this restaurant. I motivated myself. Then one day, I continued working while living quietly in the countryside. Then I got a call from Emily, who lives in the city, and she started talking a bit shyly.
Dad, there's someone I want to marry.
The man is David Smith, the CEO of a food company. David's company was a newly established small business, but it was rapidly increasing sales and had become well known in the food industry. They were working with various restaurants to create new products. I can't believe Emily managed to capture the heart of such a promising CEO. Still, the thought of my beloved Emily getting married made me feel a bit lonely. However, I had no right to oppose it. Emily chose him, so he must be a good person. Congratulations, Emily,
Thank you.
Emily said happily. A few days later, Emily contacted me again.
When we go to introduce ourselves to David's parents, we'd like to also introduce him to you and have a meeting between both families. So can you come to the city?
Apparently, this plan was suggested by David and his father, John. David is the CEO and seems to be busy with his work. Additionally, since I live in the countryside, it's hard for him to find time to visit. So they decided to combine the introductions and the family meeting into one occasion. For such an important introduction, doing it all at once because of time constraints feels a bit official. Though I felt a bit annoyed, I reluctantly agreed and went to the city to meet Emily. When I met up with Emily, we headed to an upscale Chinese restaurant that John had reserved. Upon arriving at the restaurant and being shown to a private room in the back, I opened the door to find David and John already seated and waiting. As I entered, I greeted the two of them. Nice to meet you. I'm Alex Brown, Emily's father. David returned the greeting casually while remaining seated. On the other hand, John looked at me in silence, arms crossed. Suddenly, he smirked.
You look like a poor man in those clothes. For an engagement meeting, you come wearing such a cheap suit. And Emily, what's with that cheap outfit? This won't do for David.
I was stunned by his sudden remark, having expected a greeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Emily and I apologized and took our seats. In the heavy atmosphere, John was the first to speak.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm John Smith, David's father. I apologize for my bluntness earlier. Don't be so tense. We wouldn't want to ruin the occasion.
Despite being the cause of the tension, John continued with a nonchalant demeanor. I responded with a dry laugh. Then, Emily timidly spoke up.
Well, where is your wife? Wasn't she supposed to join us today?
John smirked again.
Oh, my wife isn't coming today. She can't bear to have a meal with a poor family.
What?
No way.
Emily and I murmured simultaneously. Then, as if he remembered something, John lightly clapped his hands together.
Oh, by the way, Alex, I've heard you're having a tough time. David told me you're a poor family. But don't worry. Today, we're treating you. Please eat a lot and enjoy yourselves.
I was confused, unable to keep up with the conversation. Emily questioned David.
David, what do you mean? Why would you say we're a poor family? How could you say something so terrible?
David began explaining without any remorse.
Why? Well, you told me your father lives in the countryside, didn't you? And you also said you work in a restaurant. It's obvious without having to say it outright, isn't it?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This is the promising CEO everyone talks about. How can he be so prejudiced? Emily was also shocked, her mouth opening and closing in disbelief. John, looking irritated, interrupted the conversation.
Let's leave that aside, shall we? We've exchanged greetings, so let's eat.
John called over the waiter. Exchange greetings. We haven't even started yet. I considered saying something, but the waiter entered the room. So I swallowed my words.
How can I help you?
You're late. Sorry, but could you add this to our order? We want these poor folks to try plenty of this restaurant's dishes.
John looked at us with a smug grin. The waiter scratched his head awkwardly.
But that dish is only available with a reservation. Besides, we are currently serving the course meal.
At the waiter's words, John started yelling arrogantly.
What? We're regulars here. Can't you meet the customer's demands? Just get it ready quickly.
John banged on the table to intimidate the waiter. David also added to the order.
Since we're regulars, you know that I'm the CEO of a company. If you defy me, I can easily ruin this place. And add some desserts too.
The waiter, completely flustered, quickly took the order and left the room. I was too shocked by their selfish behavior to say anything. Emily looked at David sadly the whole time.
When you're a regular, you get certain privileges. We wanted to splurge today since the poor Brown family is here. Don't worry about the cost. I'm also a director at a company.
John spoke with satisfaction. Arrogant John and David, David's mother, who canceled at the last minute because she couldn't bear to eat with poor people. Can I really let my dear Emily marry into such a family? I wondered as I glanced at Emily. She looked down, deep in thought. She might be seeing an unexpected side of David and struggling with it. Although I wanted to oppose this, it's Emily's decision. I should avoid interfering. While I was wrestling with my own thoughts, the door to the private room opened, and dish after dish was brought in. The additional orders had been prepared, and I was impressed by the waiter's adaptability. John and David both looked satisfied,
All right, everything is here. Let's dig in. Make sure to savor it, Alex. A poor man like you probably won't get another chance to eat this.
That's right. You should taste it, Emily. Since I'm marrying you, you'll get to enjoy meals like this often. Be grateful and savor it.
They keep looking down on us, calling us poor. And now David is telling Emily she should be grateful he's marrying her? Their condescending attitude finally made me resolve to take action. With a smile, I thanked John and David. Thank you for ordering so much. I'm really happy. John puffed up with pride.
Happy, right? You should be more grateful. Feel free to order more.
Yes, the sales are going up, so we'll all be wealthier. The food is delicious, so please enjoy it. When I said this with a smile, John and David looked confused.
What? Have you been here before?
I've been here many times. After all, I own this restaurant.
Really?
Actually, I'm the owner of this upscale Chinese restaurant, and it was the first restaurant I ever started. I've always been interested in the food industry, so I initially opened a Chinese restaurant that was known for its affordability. It quickly became so popular that it was featured in the media, and gradually, we started using more premium ingredients. Because of that, it's now known as an upscale Chinese restaurant, but we still offer many affordable dishes. So it's not true that poor people would never get to eat here again. In fact, I own several other high-end restaurants, all of which have been very successful. John and David were wide-eyed with surprise. John tried to argue back.
That's a lie. This place is famous in the media. If you were the owner, you'd be on TV.
David nodded vigorously in agreement. Indeed, I am grateful that my other restaurants, in addition to this upscale Chinese restaurant, have also been featured extensively in the media. But the explanation was simple. That's because I don't like being in the spotlight. I leave interviews and such to the managers I hire. Probably no one outside the staff knows I'm the owner. I've always preferred working behind the scenes. Every time I opened a new restaurant, it became a topic in the media and online, but I always stayed out of the limelight. Moving to the countryside wasn't just to relax, but also to live a quiet life. It may seem modest to others, but it was comfortable for me, and I enjoyed every day. The reason I may have seemed poor is because I've been living a simple life in the countryside, but at the very least, I have more money than David, who's the CEO of a newly established company, or John, who's a director. The suit John criticized for looking cheap actually cost quite a bit. John grunted in frustration. By the way, you kept calling Emily's family poor and telling her to be grateful you're marrying me, but she actually manages one of my high-end restaurants. She's also set to become the next owner. David was astonished, his eyes almost popping out of his head. Emily had always wanted to have her own restaurant, so I immediately asked if she'd like to try managing one of our high-end restaurants. Emily had already proven herself to be a capable manager, and I entrusted her with the role without hesitation. She accepted eagerly, and it was decided she would be the manager. We had also discussed her becoming the next owner, and that decision had been made as well.
What? So, when you said you worked at a restaurant, you meant as a manager?
That's right.
Emily, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up.
Why didn't you tell me sooner? If I'd known, I wouldn't have told you to be grateful.
Emily couldn't hold back her anger any longer.
You never listen to the whole story, do you? It's always about you. Even when you do listen, you switch the topic to yourself halfway through. And now you're saying I should have told you sooner? Give me a break.
David started to panic at Emily's unprecedented outburst. She then turned her fury towards John.
And you, John, why do you act so bossy? Even if you're a director, it's a small company. You were probably made director just because you're the oldest among a few employees. It's not because of your skills. And stop pretending to be wealthy when you're getting all your money from David.
Easy, Emily. Isn't that going too far? Even a small company is still a company. I wanted to calm her down. But John, realizing she was right, was already crestfallen.
I could become an executive at a big company if I wanted to. It just so happens that the company I joined is small.
According to Emily, John was fired a few years ago for being incompetent at his job. Because of his age, he couldn't get into a large company, so he ended up at the small company he's working for now. Apparently, after being fired, his relationship with his wife deteriorated, and they are currently separated. The reason she didn't come today might not have been because she looked down on us, but simply because she didn't want to see John. Emily knew all this because David, who only talks about himself, had mentioned it multiple times.
David, why do you blab about everything? I told you not to talk about this to anyone.
I'm sorry, but honestly, it's your own fault, Dad.
Angered by David's lack of remorse, John grabbed him by the collar. I quickly pulled them apart. Stop it. You're disturbing the restaurant. Your behavior towards the waiter and causing trouble in the restaurant. Even as regular customers, I can't overlook this. You'll be banned from coming here next time. At my words, John and David, who had been glaring at each other, looked at me in shock.
Ban? No way. That would be a problem. I use this place for business dinners with my company's clients.
My company does too. We use it for entertaining important customers. Please, don't do this.
John and David apologized to me, but I wasn't willing to forgive their earlier behavior. Just thinking about it made my anger rise. Sorry, but I can't forgive you. From now on, not just this restaurant, but all of my other establishments will ban you. I despise people who cause trouble in my restaurants, and I had one more punishment in mind. As you may know, several of my restaurants do business with David's company. However, I don't think we can maintain a good relationship moving forward. We'll be canceling all of our contracts.
No way.
David exclaimed in shock. Actually, my restaurants also do business with David's company, and we were working on developing new products together. I was involved in the development, and I've even met David a few times. But it seems David had completely forgotten about me. Realizing this, David's face turned pale, and he started trembling.
Please, don't cancel the contracts. My company mainly deals with high-end restaurants. Almost half of our business comes from your restaurants, and our new product is almost ready. If you cancel the contracts.
He couldn't bring himself to finish the sentence, so I did it for him. The new product will be scrapped, and you'll lose half of your clients. At worst, you'll be on the brink of bankruptcy due to mounting losses. As I said this, David looked utterly defeated. When I looked at Emily, she was staring straight at the apologizing John and David. I decided to ask Emily for confirmation. What about your wedding? If you want to back out, now's your chance. Without hesitation, Emily looked me in the eye and firmly said,
Yes, I'm not marrying David. I don't want anything to do with him.
With that, Emily left the private room without looking them back.
Wait, Emily. I'm sorry. I won't act superior anymore.
David cried out, but his pleas didn't reach Emily's ears. John, in a panic, was unable to do anything. I left the private room as well and spoke to a passing waiter. I'll pay all the bills in this room. I want the pathetic father and son inside to taste a lot of our food. They won't be able to eat it again. After that, Emily and David's engagement was called off. The day after the wedding introduction, I immediately contacted all my restaurants and banned John and David. Apparently, they had caused trouble multiple times, and their names were already on the blacklist. I also explained the situation to the managers and decided to stop doing business with David's company. David persistently tried to convince us otherwise, but eventually, he had to accept the termination. Looking dejected, with nearly half of his business gone and the launch of new products halted, David's company quickly fell into the red and was on the brink of bankruptcy. Desperate to keep the company afloat, David forced his employees to work unreasonably hard. As a result, employees started quitting, and some even reported his misconduct. When he was charged with labor law violations, David was arrested. Naturally, his company went bankrupt. As for John, he was looked down upon at work because of David and eventually quit. His already strained relationship with his wife worsened, and they ended up getting divorced. Now he seems to be struggling to get by with part-time jobs. I continued to work while living a peaceful life in the countryside. Emily found a new boyfriend shortly after the incident and recently got married. She is now expecting a baby. It's my latest joy. We don't know the gender yet, but I'm sure the baby will be adorable. Until the day I can meet my grandchild, I'll keep working hard.